But one of the things that I've done for the past 8 years is I've been on the city's advisory body, the Architectural Review Commission. It's one of 15 or so advisory bodies that the city council has to do the heavy lifting to help them kind of vet all the projects that are going to be coming through the city. The advisory bodies include, we have a tree committee and the Jack House committee and the promotions coordinating committee, the TBIT. There's a whole bunch of advisory bodies. The one that I'm on handles development review projects, primarily looking at style, aesthetic, but sometimes that purview gets a little bit confused also as to what we're doing. There is projects that we've seen at the Architectural Review Commission that have been during my tenure have been large projects, Avila Ranch or a number of hotel projects lately, but even small projects. Ariel's Little Bluebird Salon came to the Architectural Review Commission. Pierre's sign out at Highland Drive on Highway 1 came to the Architectural Review Commission. So our scope at the ARC is quite broad. As Charlene mentioned, there is a proposal to streamline the advisory body and architectural review process, this development review process, as part of the zoning update that is sorely needed. I think our zoning ordinance hasn't been, it's updated every year, but it hasn't been really updated for quite a long time. It's time for some of those things to happen. So as part of that, there's a desire to streamline the process. Right now, if a development project, a large development project comes into the city, it can typically run in parallel paths that sometimes gets confusing for staff, it's confusing for the development community, but these parallel paths, it might get routed to the Architectural Review Commission first, it might get routed to the Planning Commission first. Let me describe a large project then that comes in, might go to a number of public hearings. It might go to the Tree Committee, it might go to the Cultural Heritage Committee twice, it might go to the Architectural Review Commission twice, it could easily go to the Planning Commission twice, and all of those are appealable to the City Council ultimately, so once or twice there. You can see that there's a possibility for a large project getting 7 or 8 public review meetings, each of those with a lot of staff time, a lot of confusion for the development community, and so there's a little bit of there's not a little bit, there's a lot of need to streamline this down to a simpler process. So as part of this update, the hope is that, or the proposal being floated right now that I want to share with you, is that the projects would come in and instead of being on these parallel paths, it would become a little bit more linear, a little more serial and ordered so that everybody knew what was going to happen. The small projects would come in, they would still continue to go to all the same advisory body projects. It would still be seen by the Tree Committee, still be seen by the Architectural Review, but the purview, certainly of Architectural Review, would be dialed back a little bit so that we're not looking at the entire breadth of the project and we're not the final acting body that says this project is ultimately approved. Instead, those types of projects would be reviewed. The Architectural Review would still see them. We would make a recommendation, and I say we, I'm not on it anymore, you guys, I'm retired, okay, from that role. But the Architectural Review Commission would make a recommendation to the Director of Community Development, in this case Michael Codron. Many of you know Michael as our current Director. And Michael could make a decision and be the final acting body for that small project action. His decisions would be appealable to the Planning Commission as they already are now. So it's a very similar process. Larger projects that might come in would go directly to the Planning Commission, and decisions made there could be appealed would go directly to the City Council. So the path just gets a little bit clearer. By far the biggest piece of this is that the Architectural Review Commission just doesn't become the final action body anymore, and frankly I think that's okay as the past chair. There was just too many paths. So there is some concern that from many in the community that with this streamlining process there'll be less opportunity for community input, for community review, for community commentary. And there's a perception that staff might be making too many decisions without this community vetting process. I tend to believe that we still have all the options available for community input. There's certainly going to be letter writing campaigns, all the advisory bodies still meet. You still have the opportunity to come up to this soapbox and say your piece for any project that you want to talk about. There's quite a bit of community input that can still happen. The difference is that you may not have 8 opportunities or 9 to say the same thing. That's the difference. and I think it's going to speed some of the pieces up. So as of today, these proposals have been presented to the City Council. Council has given some direction that it's moving in the right direction, and it looks like this is the way we're going. I'll be in the back to answer any questions that you might have. I'm sure our city manager's here. He can answer some of these questions too. Lastly, I'd like to encourage you, if you haven't been a part of an advisory body before, sign up for one. I know it's certainly been educational for me. I've learned a lot.